Hey, I'm Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. Thanks for joining me for another exciting podcast discussion video. Well, I look down clearly to check my microphone. There we go. Yes. Exciting discussion podcast episode with Christina Nicholson, who is a media maven, media expert. She's going to dive into giving us tips and advice on how to get publicity for a business, whether it's COVID or not. And wherever you're listening to this, if it's on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever, please give us a comment. Please say you like it. Please rate it. And you can always find me at smarthustle.com. Christina, welcome and thanks for taking the time to join me today and share with the Smart Hustle audience. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So let's dive into, Christina, just give people a little overview of what you do. Well, who do you serve and what do you help them solve?
I serve business owners, small and large, and I help them earn exposure in the media without spending money on advertising. So I help them basically get in the news, whether that be a bigger feature, quotes here and there, TV, podcast interviews. You get in the news, but you're not spending any money on ads to do it.
I love it. I noticed you said earn exposure. I know what that means, but for those who may be like, wait a minute, did she just say earn exposure? Tell me what that means in the broader sense. Why is that word so important as I think it may be?
Yeah, because you are actually earning it. So you can have your own exposure, which is hosting your own podcast, posting on your social media, putting stuff on your website. That's the media that you own and you control.
Right.
You can also pay for media, which is like Facebook ads, an ad in a newspaper or a magazine. And then earning media is when you actually spend time and effort to earn the exposure. You are there because you earned your place there.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. And let's talk about media, if you don't mind, Christina. Let me ask this. Is there media tips and advice pre-COVID, post-COVID, the things that you would share 6 months ago? Are you going to share those same things today, or has the whole rule book been different or just changed slightly? I'm just curious, even before we get into some tips, how would it have been, or is it the same?
Yeah, it has changed slightly.
Okay.
Because you can still, regardless of your industry, you could still get media coverage, but people are covering obviously the coronavirus a little bit more than other things. However, they're still covering other things. I have clients that make bracelets. There are still people writing about fashion accessories like bracelets that's getting coverage. You just have to be mindful of what the person on the other side is doing and how their job may have shifted.
Got it. For example, so in the past, you may be covering somebody on bracelets talking about fashion. Today, you may tell your client, hey, listen, we're going to get you in this story, but we're going to shift and talk more about, this is a low margin, how you're working from home, or talk more about how you've had to deal with your employees or clean the bracelets differently. Is that the kind of thing? The story has been shifted, but the client's still the same. Is that
exactly? And we've got, for example, we've gotten one of our bracelet clients coverage because they were donating $5 for every bracelet sold to a coronavirus relief foundation. So it's the exposure is going to give the person or the brand that same level of authority and credibility, but the angles are going to be different.
Got it. So Christina, what are your best tips? I mean, I'd love to shut up and listen, or I can keep asking you, but I'm curious, what are 3 to 5? What are some 3 to 5 things you would say that everybody needs to know? Let's say they'll make it tougher for you. I don't want to work with Christina. I want to do this myself. Just general getting publicity and advice. What are some things you say, Ramon, regardless of what you do, how you do it? Here's some things that every business owner makes a bracelet, or they're an accountant, or they make water bottles, which I do need to drink more of. Oh, wrong way. Whatever the idea is that you would advise every small business owner. They're not a $1 billion company, Christina. They don't have 10 people in an advertising firm. They're just me and an office or a closet. What would you tell people they need to know?
Well, and honestly, I want to start off by saying those people actually have it a little easier. And I honestly mean that. People think you have to be big to earn media exposure. You don't. Actually, it's annoying from a publicist perspective because you will write something to pitch and the director of marketing will want to run it by legal. And there's just so many steps and so much red tape. When if you're a solopreneur and it's just you can put anything out there in 5 minutes. You don't have to run it by your legal team. So it just makes things a lot easier because you don't have to go through so many people. But I think, and I'm sure, Ramon, that you can speak to a lot of this because I'm sure you get pitched with not just the podcast, but your other platforms. I'll give you a couple of tips on what
Please.
not to do and then what to do.
I love what not to do is great. About the can be the same sometimes. So
it's true. It's true. So what not to do not send the same pitch to 500 people at the same time.
Okay.
This is something that is very common. My background is in TV. I actually never got an education in PR. It was from being on the other side of the media, working as a TV reporter and anchor. And I can tell you that so many people will write the same pitch and send it to 500 people at the same time. It's not personalized, and it's very obvious that you're sending it to a lot of people at once. So instead of doing that, just take the time to get to know somebody and reach out to them one-on-one. Hey, this is how I know you. Hey, I've been following you. I like what you write about this, this, and this. And reach out one-on-one. Yes, it takes more time, but you're going to convert at a much higher rate because you're taking the time to personalize something. Right. So don't mass pitch. Instead of that, personalize something.
Got it.
And then another tip that I could share on what not to do is don't write a long, boring press release. I was watching last year, it was when Netflix came out with the Ted Bundy movie, the documentary with Zac Efron, and they were using old clips from the news about how they were having a hard time finding Ted Bundy because he was going from state to state, and the police were being interviewed, and they said, well, to get the word out and let people know what we're doing, we're sending out press releases. And this was in the 70s, okay? And I am watching this and I'm like, dear Lord, like 2020, this is how people are still operating, as if the media works the same. And so a long, boring press release, I can tell you that is the last thing anybody wants in their inbox. So instead of doing that, save yourself some time and just write 5 sentences on, this is what I have to share. This is why your audience should care. And I can hand you everything you need on a silver platter, and I'll share it with my audience. That's a big part too.
Right.
You have to do your part. You can't just get the media exposure and call it a day. Make it easy, short, sweet, to the point. Make it easy for the person on the receiving end to know exactly what kind of value you offer, and then make it easy to actually include them in the story, interview them on the podcast, whatever it is, because people make it hard. Like, they want exposure so bad, but they almost are their own bottleneck, and they make it hard for the journalist to do their job. So the easier you can make it on them, the more likely you are to get exposure.
Wow. Make it easy. I love it. I love it. I love it. And then what about ideation, et cetera, things like this? What do you do? I want to get my Apple AirPod is cheating because anything Apple, everybody will cover, but you get my point. I'm the maker of this nice hunting custom knife in Tennessee somewhere, and I want to get publicity for it. What are the things that you go through to get publicity? Is it the knife? Maybe it's me? I don't know. What are some things that you would go through as you evaluate, how can we get this on a podcast or on CNN or on a small local town paper or just on a radio program? What are some things you and your team go through?
First of all, can I just say, if you're not watching this video, you need to, because Ramon is just pulling props out like a magician, like every direction.
I got a lot more things over there.
Like,
we can pull out some cloth cufflinks too if we want.
That's in a beautiful jar too. That's amazing. Okay, I'll use that as an example because I once had a client. Okay. She wasn't a client of the agency. She was an online course client that I was helping. Right. And her big thing was recycling and living green. And she had, in a beautiful jar, like your cufflinks are in, she had all of the trash that she threw away from the last 2 years in one little jar. So I know, it's crazy. So we used that visual to tell the story, and we pitched it was around Earth Day, which I know it's in April. I don't know if it's maybe April 21st-ish. All the green people are going to hate me because I don't know that day. It's around April. And we pitched that image, and that image got a little pickup, right? Wow. So that was something that you could see that could tell the story. And then we also pitched her as an expert in living green and, the simple life, minimalism, an expert in recycling, all of those things. And you look at the calendar, that's one thing you can do. So Earth Day, obviously, that's a big thing. But the hardest part in all of this is being newsworthy. Nobody's going to give you a free commercial. It's not the media's job to promote you. So you have to find a way to be newsworthy. That's why I say look at the calendar. So
Christine, you're saying a press release, as it were, a pitch that says, Ramon got up to get coffee today. That's probably something maybe nobody's interested. Is that what you're saying? Something like that?
I mean, if it's like the only kind of coffee anybody could
No, it's
get,
just
and it's
regular
like
coffee. Regular
if it's
coffee.
magical, if it's regular, not so much.
Got it. Got it.
So you have to find ways to be newsworthy, and everybody has their own bias. You know, they think their business, their
Yes.
brand, their product, their service, it's the best thing since sliced bread, and that's what makes it newsworthy. It doesn't really work like that. So you have to be newsworthy. Look at what's happening on the calendar, because that gives the media a reason to do it right now. Look at what's already happening in the news cycle. We talked about the bracelets, right? That's why they're working, you know, with different coronavirus angles, because that's what people are talking about. You can get coverage for that. And then you have to enterprise ideas. And that's just what makes it the hardest. That's why I always rely on the calendar, what people are already talking about. How can we add to that conversation?
Got it.
And then remember, it's not just about your product or service. It's also about you as an expert in your industry. So if we're going to talk about the bracelet clients again, it's not just about the bracelet. We have gotten the founders, the woman who makes the bracelet, how she started her business. We got that right up in Forbes. She is a female Hispanic. So we got her in the Hispanic outlets about her starting her business in a college dorm room and how it grew. So you can't pitch the same thing to the same people all the time. You've got to have those different angles in different places. And again, the hardest part is finding that newsworthy element. But if it's not newsworthy, people are going to send you to the ad department to buy an ad.
Or ignore you.
Most likely ignore you.
How do we know, Christina, when it's time to do something ourselves or hire an agency such as yourself or consultant, as it were? I've done both. Both have worked. How do you know the difference between which one is best for one's business?
It really depends on time and money.
Okay.
Do you have the time to do it yourself? If you don't have the time to do it yourself, do you have an assistant or a VA or somebody who you could kind of make your own in-house PR? If not, then it is time to outsource it if you feel comfortable spending the money for an agency. Now, when it comes to shopping for an agency, buyer beware. And I say this as the owner of an agency.
Right.
I used to be pitched by a lot all day, every day. And most of them do the things that I just said not to do, which is pitch 500 people at once and share a long, boring press release. You could even hire a freelancer, right? Like there's so many solopreneurs right now. You could hire a freelancer for 1/3 the cost that you could an agency. You are just getting one person.
Sure.
You're not getting a team. But there's a variety of things you could do. And I've heard people say that it looks more legit for you if you have an agency or a publicist. From the journalism perspective, they don't care. They just want the good story. They want you to help them do their job and deliver a good story. I honestly, and I think maybe this is karma because I have journalists doing this to me now, but I used to as a journalist. If I got pitched by somebody in PR, I would bypass them and go straight to the business owner because in my experience, PR people were so annoying. Like when I had to work with them, they would like they were babysitting me and telling me how to do my job and say, include this soundbite, do this. Like, you don't tell me how to do this story.
And on the other hand, I understand it because they're looking at the end result. They want to make sure the client's happy.
Exactly.
So I get it in a way, but listen, that's one pet peeve of mine. Christina pitches me, says, Ramon, can you cover my client? I say, yes. Got it. That's your job. That's what they hire you to do. But the part I don't like as a writer and who's one who pitched, and of course I pitch as well, point being is that where it's kind of like, you've said it best. I'm just underlining it, like the overhandling. Like, I don't mind even asking when is it going to come out. That's reasonable. But just like when I feel there being a barrier, I just want to have a conversation with Jenny and let's laugh and talk. But they're like, I don't know. So
they act like they're paying for an ad and they're not. So don't tell me how to do my job. I got this.
Right. I got the story. I said yes. Be on the call, even listen. But let me just talk to the person a bit.
Yes.
This is interesting. And I'm curious, and again, I want to ask you, why would some of the not good agencies or consultants do the things you said not to do? But as I was going to ask the question, I'm thinking, you know what, that's life. Web developers are sucky web developers. Bricklayers are sucky bricklayers. So, but I was just curious, how could a professional know not to put 1,000 names in a CC field and send it? Really?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, it is very competitive.
Sure.
Who wouldn't want to be on the Today Show for free, right? It's very competitive. So you have a lot of competition. And I think obviously there's just lazy people, but I think a bigger component of it is that people learned how to do things and they just kept on doing it like that.
Right.
And if we're looking at the media industry specifically, like just think of how much that changes year to year. Just look at podcasting. Like it's growing like crazy. So I think something that I make sure I try to separate myself from a lot of other people who do what I do is I want to practice what I preach. I want to have the finger on my pulse of everything. So if I'm telling you I can get you on TV, then I got to be on TV too.
Right.
If I'm telling you you should contribute to an outlet, then I need to be contributing to outlets. And I think a lot of people in PR, they learned something maybe in 1984 and they're still doing it the same way since when they learned it. So I think people haven't really adapted to the way media has changed and they're not really in it.
Yes.
They're working it from an outsider's perspective and not from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of what you should do to keep up with what's going on and do things more strategically and more effectively.
Yeah, for sure. And I think they just unplugged the fax machine and kept doing the same principle that they would do in the fax machine. Christina, I have 2 more questions for you, but before we go to those questions, can you just tell people who are listening right now who want to reach you, what's the best way to do that? What are some 1 or 2 sites that they should go to learn more about what you're doing, resources to work with you, if you want to share that?
Well, thank you for asking. I have my own podcast, Become a Media Maven. You will be a guest on that. And then you can also find me on social media. I am social. I talk back. I am at Christina all day there. My website is mediamavenandmore.com.
Mediamavenandmore.com. Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's a mouthful.
That's good. No, I just want to repeat.
It's a long one. Yeah, I'm in all the places.
Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah. So I guess the other 2 questions, and one of them is slipping out of my head. It's like floating over there, Christina, floating over there. So I'll grab it back in a minute. When it comes back. But can you talk about the different platforms we have? Everybody, Christina, wants to be on Good Morning America, the Today Show. Everybody wants to be, I don't know, whatever on the front cover of the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure the newbie clients of yours ask that. But can you just talk and set our expectations and help us understand that, is Christina going to get me on the front cover of Inc.? Will she get me even on the page 25 of Inc.? Or is she just going to get me in a podcast? And maybe that's okay. Can you help us understand, or how do you and your agency break down these things? Is one better than the other? I don't know.
This is an amazing question. Okay. I set expectations for clients all the time. And then the next day I need to remind them because they do what you said. Like they have like, ooh, the cover of Inc. Ooh, this, ooh, that. And I'm like, okay, like I understand you want to like follow like Mark Zuckerberg being on the cover, but are you Mark Zuckerberg?
That's status? A good question. Like, Mark is in Congress. Mark was with Oprah. Why can't I? This is a good question.
This is what they seriously ask me this all the time. And I'm like, you need to start slow and work your way up. Like you have $1 million business now. Like the week after you started your business, was it at $1 million? Like it just doesn't work like that. I always tell people to start small and start local and work your way up. There's a few reasons for this. One, you don't want to get on national TV for the first time and totally blow it and look like an idiot. So if you're going to blow it and look like an idiot, do that on local TV first and have some practice and work your way up. Plus, if I'm pitching the big outlets, they're going to Google you. They're going to want to see other media before they go straight to you. They're going to want to make sure that you're, for lack of a better word, worthy of national exposure. And if you haven't earned local exposure, then why should you be earning national exposure? So you totally need to work your way up. And then so many people, they turn their nose up to like the small niche things, but that's where the ROI is. I had a client who, they had a fitness app where like, if I'm in Florida, or if I'm in South Florida and you're in Orlando, I'll go with where we met. We met in Orlando. I'm in South Florida. We want to race, right? And we race against each other on this virtual app. And we got them on the Today Show, which was great. Like millions of people saw. But I'm one of those people that was watching the Today Show that was like, I am not running unless you are chasing me with a weapon. Like it's not going to happen. But then we also got them in Runner's World, which is a magazine specific for people who like running. Much smaller. I mean, it's still a huge outlet, much smaller than the Today Show, but you're going to see a bigger ROI because it's more niched. And people want PR for different reasons. Some people want it as a lead generator. Some people want it because it helps them get a book deal. Some people want it just because it makes them feel good. It's like an ego thing.
That's the only...
I love your honesty.
I'm going to be confessed for my ego, and it makes me feel good. Yes, Fox News. I'll be going to to whatever the middle of Times, 6th Avenue and 30, middle of Times Square, Fox Studio or CNN. Yes, I'll take No, I don't need coffee right now. Well, the green room is just fine. Ah. But you're right. There's different reasons for it. And I think, but overall, I think whatever the reason, I think for me, Christina, besides, of course, the lead generation, all that, I think the credibility. It's just
That's what
a
it
one
is.
time,
100%.
but somebody who's, I'll give a shout out to my friend Gene Marks. He's on Fox Business all the time. He's garnered that relationship and talking about PPP and all these other kind of things like that. So I think that's very powerful. So what am I hearing you say then? I think what I'm hearing you say is that if you earn the right to get the big one, or you're Captain Sully and you land the plane at the Hudson, Christina will probably get you anywhere you want for the next week. But what I'm hearing you say is that, and I agree with this, listen, my podcast, smaller reach, but there's tons of podcasts, tons of blogs, tons of, it could be a Medium article that has 10,000 followers. So that's what I'm hearing you say is that, yes, we all want these big things, but either start somewhere and work your way up, or even 3 or 4 placements a month spread around over a course of a year or two.
That's what it is.
Going up.
That's exactly what it is. Like with our clients, we always aim for 4 a month.
Right.
And obviously we're going to try the big guys, but realistically you have better luck at the little guys. And then when you're done with the little guys, you slowly start working your way up. And it's a long-term game. It's like SEO. Sure. You don't work at something for a couple of weeks and then you're on the front page of Google for like every keyword you want. Right. This is a long-term strategy. Right. We are building a brand, right? Like Gary Vaynerchuk didn't become Gary Vaynerchuk overnight. It took him 15 years and people are still just learning who he is.
That's right.
You have to slowly build your brand. That's just the way it works. And you have to be patient when it comes to earning media. So don't think this is something where, oh, I got a couple of media hits. Why isn't my business exploding? Like it just doesn't work like that. And I think a lot of the online marketers, I'm using air quotes, the online marketers, the way they write some of their copy, they make you believe it works like that because that's what sells more of their programs, but that's not how it works.
This is powerful. Anything I didn't ask you, Christina, besides the other 400 questions that you probably could answer that I didn't ask you today before we conclude this awesome discussion?
They were amazing questions. I think just the biggest thing I want people to take away with is that you don't have to be a big brand. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have any money. I mean, you can be a solopreneur at home working at night because you do another thing full time in the day. People have this perception that if you're earning media exposure, that's where you are. And that's why you want to earn media exposure because it gives people that perception of you. The client that I talked about that I got them on the Today Show and Runner's World, these were 2 guys with a side hustle and they lost money making an app. And they were on the Today Show, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, TV in Washington, D.C. and Runner's World. Like it doesn't matter how big or small you are. This is earning media. You can have no money and you can do it. You just have to know who to pitch with what angle and reach out to them in a personalized way that shows I'm not looking for a free commercial. I just want to share this with your audience because this is why they will care.
No, that is powerful. Listen, Christina Nicholson, Medium Maven and more. I want to say yes.
Yes.
MediumMavenMore.com. Check her out and all things social. If you just Google or look up Christina Nicholson on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Snapchat, on TikTok, and whatever else is coming. Maybe not TikTok. Everything else.
In quarantine, I got myself an account.
Good for you. I did too. I had to have one TikTok out there somewhere, but I don't. It's not a fit for my audience today. But my name is Ramon Ray, founder of smarthustle.com. And thank you all for listening to this. If you're watching this on iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere else, give us a comment, give us a rating, give us a like. And you can check out me at smarthustle.com or ramonray.com. No N-Y, no Y, not Ramoncito. It's just Ramon Ray. Thank you for listening. And again, have an awesome, awesome, beautiful day.